Okay, students. So today we're going to be discussing leverage. So I have my file open. If you don't know how to locate the files, you are going to need to go into a video that's going to be linked at in the top of the PowerPoint that's going to be sent out so that you guys can complete this homework. I also have a few things to tell you. So one of the students the other day asked me a question, and I told him to read the textbook, but he told me he read the textbook, and then I realized something. The way that he was taking notes was he was in there taking notes by hand. He read the textbook and he took notes. I don't want you guys taking notes. What I want you to do is I want you to make a flashcard, right? So make a flashcard on these bullet points. If you go through and you read it and you see something that you think is useful, you need to make a flashcard of it. Now, I want you guys to go through and read the textbook and then make a flashcard of every single formula that you see. And I want you to make a flashcard for the explanations of the formulas as well. And if you do that and you run through those flashcards 20 times, and if you run through those flashcards 20 times and then you begin to plug in actual financial statement data, then what you can do is you can start to use that data in order to you can start to use that data in order to what's it called in order to you can start to use that data oh yeah you can start to use that data in order to practice and get your repetitions up. So you need to get your reps up. That's one of the big issues that you guys are having, and that's why things are so difficult to understand. So anyways, I have my Zero textbook open, and you can find that inside of your file folder. Every single one of you guys have that. If you have Titan Hall, it's going to be Zero textbook. And again, I have a video explaining how to locate those things. And also, before we get started, I also want to go over one more thing. So a lot of you guys, you were given the Wall Street Journal Prime, and you were given maybe a risk rating 5, and you said 5. 500 bips corresponds with SOFR. So if you're having trouble figuring out what yours is, I want you to go into open the Excel document. There's home, insert, draw, page layout, formulas, data, review, and view. I want you to go into view, and there's something titled focus cell. I want you to click on focus cell and then use your keypad, and you need to find the cross section between Wall Street Journal Prime and the cross section between risk rating 4. And if you have SOFR, you need to find the cross rating between risk rating 1 and the cross section between SOFR. And that's how you can do it more easily. And this, as you can see on my screen, there it shows you, right? You can see it. You see how the focus cell created a T for me, and it's locating whatever cell that I'm in. And this might make it easier for some of you guys. I want you to do that, and I want you to come back to me next week with updated loan structure. So basically, inside of your section here, I want you to redo this chart, and I want you to also give me the right information here. So it should be, in mine, for example, I have 750 plus 225. If we go in and we look, we have Wall Street Journal Prime plus 2.25, and that corresponds with Wall Street Journal Prime and risk rating 5, okay? So, anyway, what we're going to be doing today is we are going to be going over leverage. And if you're not familiar with the concept of leverage, what you need to do is you need to open the textbook. I want you to go to Capital, right? I want you to go to pages 24, and I want you to read pages 24 through 27. You need to get comfortable with leverage, capitalization, and retained earnings. You have got to wrap your head around all three of these concepts: retained earnings, capitalization, and leverage. Okay, so go through all three and try and wrap your head around it. So anyways, let's go ahead and get started with what we're going to be doing today. I have my folder open. You're going to need to open Commercial Banking Excel, right? You're going to need to open Policy Guidelines. You're going to need to open Loan Analysis Draft, our project. I already have mine open. You're going to need to open, and that's actually all. Yeah, that's all. So we open this. If you haven't already, you're going to need to gather the industry data, right? Industry data. And focus. You're going to need to gather the industry data. And I have a video that I'll link at the end of this video that explains how to get the industry data. And if you don't want to watch that full video, there's also this chart to the right titled industry data, and it'll tell you how to do it all. And we also have pictures if you go further to the right, which will explain how to gather industry data too. So you have 3 different methods to gather industry data. What we're going to do is we're going to take this, move it over, and you can do that by taking your screenshot and copying and then moving it over, copy paste, or you can do it the way that I do it, where you highlight, copy as picture, as shown and printed, okay, right? And we're going to need to take this as well, and we're going to put that right there. So we need both of those. So I already have 2 statements here, and you're probably wondering, Makai, well, why did you start without us? Well, I don't really know. I'm going to go over that, all right? So let's delete that, and then right here it should say something along the lines of write a brief summary, right? Something like that on capitalization, right? What I want you to write here is the borrower balance sheet consists of, right, 79% debt and 21% equity as of 2025. As of year-to-date 2025. Always say year-to-date. Always say fiscal year-end, right? Always say that. Always say year-to-date. Always say fiscal year-end. Okay, so quick statement, simple statement, right? Now we're going to get into it. Oh my God, who's honking? Jeez, it's so loud over here. Okay, so we have our conversation. The reason why I had you guys open this earlier is because you're going to need the conversation. There's information in here that you're going to need. Remember, in the last video, which I'll link to, I highlighted my conversation so that I can locate things a little bit easier. And I also highlighted my financial statement so that I could locate things a little bit easier, right? So, again, we noticed we invested in better milling equipment. Real simple. Jonathan Verde. And then we have our blue highlights. This is going to explain what happens in their debt. And we also have our purple highlights, which is going to explain what's happening with their net revenue. Okay? So, as we can see, if we analyze the financial statements, they have deferred revenue, and that fluctuates, but it peaks in 2024, and their accounts payables peak in 2024 as well, right? Their accounts receivables also peak in 2024, okay? And machinery and equipment, okay, they have more equipment, right? That rises in 2025, okay? If we see here, accounts receivables went up, which means it's taking longer for them to get paid, and then it went down, which means that these receivables have been paid down as of year to date, which means that between these 2 periods, we can safely assume that they received around $300,000 worth of receivables. So $300,000 worth of receivables have been paid down. We can safely assume that the difference was made into cash. So over this period between 2024 and 2026, they've received $306,000 worth of cash. That's a safe assumption to make. And what did they do with that cash? Well, we really don't know. We really do not know. Maybe they spent it over here. I don't know. Yeah. That's what we're going to figure out eventually. We'll find out. Okay. All right. Okay, yeah, back to it. So the first thing that I want to take note of is the things that I highlighted in blue, which regards their leverage. So, like I said, we have increased deferred revenue, and deferred revenue is an account meaning revenue that's been earned, but they haven't performed their services. Deferred revenue, you can Google it, and blah blah blah. Unearned is unearned revenue, refers to money a company receives in advance of goods and services being delivered, right? So that's cash that they've gotten for things that they have not done. And if this account is going up and up, then that means that some of their customers are paying in advance, which means that they're receiving this money on the front end, which is a pretty dangerous position to put yourself in. But I mean, we'll discuss that later on. Um, but as we see, that account is going up and up. So that means that they have not been performing some of these things that they're supposed to deliver, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But what I want you to notice is that if this is occurring, then that means if their liabilities are increasing, then that means that they're keeping cash on hand. So if deferred revenue is going up, guess what they're not doing? They're not paying their employees. And I know that's a crazy assumption. Makai, how'd you come up with that from that? Well, if they're not performing the actions that they're supposed to be performing, then that means that their employees are not delivering the goods that they promised to deliver, which in turn means the employees are not being paid for work that they have not done. In turn, what this does is that it keeps cash on hand. I know it's a crazy assumption. It's like, Makai, how'd you come up with that? Well, I mean, you just got to think about it. They're keeping cash on hand, right? This keeps cash on hand. My employees haven't delivered the goods to the people, so naturally that's how it works. I know I have more experience than you guys. Hopefully, you won't have to deal with deferred revenue. But accounts payable trade, this is something that you guys should understand. Now, that's something that we've dealt with in class. If accounts payable trade goes up, it means that they're paying their suppliers more slowly. The issue here is that if you pay your suppliers too slowly, they're going to stop supplying you, right? But as we see in 2025, they repaid their suppliers 400,000, and they also um, delivered 300,000 worth of goods. They delivered 300,000 worth of goods, so that's officially earned revenue. Okay. Now you might be wondering, well, why did they want to keep cash on hand? What was the big deal? Well, look here. They wanted to keep cash on hand because they had a $600,000 increase in sales. They also gave their partners or gave their related companies $200,000 worth of cash, right? And they also distributed $400,000 worth of cash. So they kept this cash on hand. They spent it. They withdrew it. They withdrew it, right? And they spent it on themselves. They kept cash on hand here. They kept cash on hand here, and then they financed more sales. And if you don't understand why increases in liabilities finances sales on account, then you're going to need to go and read the working capital section inside of the textbook. And if you still don't understand it, then I suggest you go and watch a YouTube video on how accounts receivables can cause financial issues. So go into the textbook, find the capital section, the working capital section, and read it again. And make sure that this time, instead of taking notes over it, you go and you, oh, here we go, working capital. Page 33. So go and read pages 33 all the way down to pages 37. And instead of taking notes, make sure that you're making flashcards and make sure that you're working through the equations. Work through the equations start to finish. Try and change the variables so that you can understand how the different variables within the equation affect the outcome of the equation, right? And I want you to run through each equation 20 times so that you can wrap your head around it. And that's how you get good at this. That's how you start to understand what's going on. Also in 2025, they bought machinery and equipment, which is well, at least they used this loan from related company for something. And again, we're gonna double down on that when we read the conversation. So again, understood. Now let's talk about the $1 billion increase in debt related to companies, right? That loan was for new equipment. We invested in a machine that applies a coating to our wheat products that increases the shelf life an extra month, right? That upgrade was necessary to finalize the deal with Sprouts. We are currently paying a 9% on this loan over 10 years. Okay, interesting, right? That's right. This contract with Sprouts is expected to generate an additional $1 million in annual revenue and an additional 115K to our bottom line. Wow, we could take this directly and put that right into the income section, right? Okay, anyways, we'll need the lender to subordinate that loan to Texas Southern Capital Bank, logically. And but yes, we will allow them to receive interest payments until debt's tangible net worth position improves. The loan must remain subordinated. Okay, that is good information. So now let's open up our project. And I know you guys are wondering, Makai, well, what in the world are we going to do with that information? Well, let's start with something that you guys are familiar with. Let's start by comparing them to their peers, right? So, the borrower, here's the borrower's debt to tangible net worth has trended upward in the periods analyzed, right? And as we see for mine, it goes up, or it goes down, then it goes up and up. But the overall trend is up. Now, some of you guys is going to go down, and it's going to go down a lot, right? It's going to go to negative 2.66, right? It's going to go down a lot, and then it's going to go up a lot. A negative debt to tangible net worth is actually worse than a high debt to tangible net worth because it means you have negative equity. But that's a whole other conversation. I just wanted to throw that out there. Don't think negative debt to tangible net worth is a good thing. Now, debt to tangible net worth that's a decimal is a great thing. This is a great year for them, a great year. But anyways, this is a good year too. This means that debt and equity are 1-to-1. So for every dollar of debt, they have $1 of equity. Here, for every $2.66 of debt, they have $3. They have $1 of equity. Now let's visit policy and see what policy says on debt to tangible net worth, just so that we can make sure that we're getting clear on this. And a collateral shortfall in AR concentration, I think I highlighted that last time. Inadequate liquidity. Oh, oops. I didn't mean to unhighlight those. Right, excessive leverage. Excessive leverage refers to the borrower's debt to tangible net worth ratio being greater than 3. So that's $3 for every $1 of equity. $3 of debt for every $1 of equity. Again, as we see, my borrower is inching there. In 2024, they're right there. And it's like, okay, they're still good, but right here they break policy. And that means in the periods analyzed, debt to tangible net worth has increased from 1.02x to 3.66x, right? 3.69x, right? And then compared to, that's supposed to be a capital, compared to their peers, they underperform. They underperform. They underperform with 3.69x as of year to date 2025 compared to the industry median of 1.40x, right? This is the simple statement that you guys have to make, right? Now, everybody should have a conversation statement to make. So we're going to have two statements to make. We're going to have a balance sheet and we're going to have a conversation. Okay? Now, whichever one, we're not going to go based on this, right? We're going to go based on timeline. So in my timeline, my conversation piece happens in 2025, and my balance sheet piece, which is the accounts payable and the deferred revenue, that happens in 2024. That's something that I have to infer. Our borrower didn't tell me that information. Whereas this loan from related companies, they told me exactly what they did with that. We also have this bank note down there, but the bank note wasn't commented on down here. But I can only assume what this bank note was used for. And my assumption is that they used the bank note to help finance this equipment, and also, I mean that's all I can guess. I don't really know what they did with this banknote. It looks like they maybe financed operations, or yeah, yeah. Who really knows, right? Who really knows? Okay. Anyways, let's go back in. So, per our conversation with Jonathan, they have increased their debt from related companies by $1 million to finance the purchase the purchase of $1.1 million. And if you're wondering where I got those numbers from, remember the loan from related company is $1 million. The equipment is 1.1 million dollars. And inside the conversation, they said they used the $1 million from related companies to purchase that equipment, right? So we can tell that yes, that is exactly what it does. To purchase, uh, to finance the purchase of $1.1 million in equipment. Okay. Um, this equipment will improve the shelf life of their wheat. Okay, and now they have increased their debt from 1.1 million to finance, right? To finance, let's say to finance 90% of the purchase. And if you're wondering how I came up with 90%, well, let's run this number real quick. We're gonna do 1 million divided by 1.1 million, and that gets us to 90%, right? All right, let me not say 1.1 million. Let's do 1 divided by 1.1121, and then that gets us to 89%, which rounds to 90%. And remember, this symbol right here means about, so close to. Okay, so that's a pretty decent statement right there. That's fairly decent. Per our conversation with Jonathan, in as of year to date 2025, remember, they have agreed to subordinate this loan to Texas. Remember, you guys work for Texas Southern Capital Bank right now. Texas Southern Capital Bank, which will improve their debt to tangible net worth position to. And hopefully you guys paid attention in class. We are going to add that $1 million in debt to our equity position, not because it's debt or not because it's equity, because when they subordinate that debt to us, they cannot be repaid until we say that they're repaid. So essentially, it operates more like preferred equity than it does like a loan, right? I need you guys to please wrap your head around that concept. If you don't know what preferred equity is, I suggest you go and find a YouTube video on it. It's a fairly smooth concept. It's basically you buy equity in a company, and that company is obligated to repay you dividends at an agreed upon frequency, and it's not debt, because the only way to exit your position is by selling your preferred equity. So, anyways, um, just information to use. Um, so again, subordinated debt functions more like preferred equity, which means for the sake of internal purposes, remember this is only internal. You cannot recognize it as equity on a balance sheet unless it's for internal purposes. So for internal purposes, we're going to move this debt over to the equity side. And remember, we have we have 2162 in debt minus 1002 equals, and then we're going to do the division sign, divided by, in parentheses, right? We have 586 in equity plus our subordinated debt, right? So this is our debt minus our subordinated debt, and then we're going to divide that by our equity plus our subordinated debt, which equals our new version of debt to tangible net worth, which is 0.73 to 0.73x, which outperforms the industry. That they outperform the industry upper quartile. The industry upper quartile of 0.080x. Now, I don't want y'all just going in willy-nilly and trying to figure out, how do I add back equity? I don't want you doing that. Do not go in and try to find out reasons to add back equity. The reason why we were able to do this is because they have agreed to subordinate this loan to Texas Southern Capital Bank, right? That's why we were able to add it back. And we got that in the conversation with Jonathan. Jonathan said, hey, we can get the guys who gave us that loan to subordinate this debt to you guys. We can get them to do that. Now it's time for the more challenging comments. So the more challenging comment is it's not that we're going to use our imagination, it's that we're going to have to use our analysis skills. So essentially what's going on is, in fiscal year end 2024, the borrower supported increased sales by increased sales on account. Sales on account means increased accounts receivable. That's all I'm saying right there when I say sales on account. So anyways, the borrower supported increased sales on account by deferring revenues, and by deferring revenues, I mean by not completing, not fulfilling their side of the contract with their customers. And what that means is they didn't pay their employees to fulfill their side of their obligations, which in turn keeps cash on hand, right? So we'll keep it simple. The borrower supported increased sales by deferring revenues and repaying suppliers more slowly, right? The borrower supported increased sales on account by deferring revenue and repaying suppliers more slowly, comma, which resulted in a positive cash impact of around, and we're gonna do the change. So this went up about 500,000, and this went up about 400,000. So we'll say 400. We'll say 400 plus 500, 900, around 900 M, around 900 M. And I know I know I'm moving quickly. Slow me down if you need to. Watch this at 1.5 speeds if I'm going too slow for you. But if I'm going too fast, watch this at 0.5 speed, and it'll slow down. But basically, what I'm saying with this statement is that the borrower supported the increased sales on account, and remember, they sold $600,000 worth of merchandise on account. They supported that $600,000 increase in sales on account by deferring revenues and repaying suppliers more slowly. And as we see, they deferred revenues. They deferred $500,000 worth of revenues between 22 and 23, and then they paid suppliers more slowly, and they paid they basically borrowed from their suppliers about $400,000 worth of cash, so around $900,000, right? This created this caused that tangible net worth to increase from 0.91x to in fiscal year end 2023 to 2.66x in fiscal year end 2024, right? And that's what happened there, right? Now we have to make our comments on retained earnings, right? So typically the borrower doesn't withdraw too much money, but here they withdrew more, right? There they withdrew more, and here they withdrew more, here they withdrew more. So they're withdrawing a lot of money, and then here they made contributions. So we can net that. Let's take the net of those, right? So let's say 169 minus 65. We netted out our withdrawals with our contributions. So they withdrew 104K. Is 104K more than their net profit? Yes, it's more than their net profit. It is more than their net profit, right? So right here, when we see that their total net worth went down, not because the company isn't profitable, but because they're withdrawing more cash than they're retaining. So our statement is going to be, okay, let me keep going through the numbers. Okay. Let me keep going through the numbers. 99. Oh. Okay, and then they did an injection of 13K in this year, but okay, it looks like retained earnings still went down, and retained earnings decreased. Why? Why did they decrease? That's odd. Oh, I'm tripping. I'm wrong. Yeah, that's between these 2 years. Retained earnings decreased between these 2 years. All right. So in 2022, their retained earnings must have decreased because their net profit is less than their withdrawals. Whereas in 2023, retained earnings increased. You guys have to go and understand how retained earnings works. It's a difficult concept to explain. But in fiscal year end 2024, retained earnings decreased due to a large distribution of cash around of, it's not 411,000. And I got that. If you see, their retained earnings decreased in 2024, not because they were unprofitable. They had a profit, they turned a profit, but they withdrew $411,000. And I want y'all to take note of that because that affects their capitalization, right? And this is what I want you to say. So we have our comparison between their historical self and their peers. We have our comparison, or we have our analysis of the conversation. We have our analysis of the balance sheet, and then we have our analysis of retained earnings, right? Fiscal year end 2023, retained earnings increased as the borrower injected more cash into the company and retained profit, right? Injected 13,000. And remember, if you don't remember how we got 13,000, it's right here. We took $99,000 and then we subtracted 112, and the difference was $13. And the reason why it's negative is because remember I just flipped it. A withdrawal is negative, and so I just flipped it. I don't want you thinking too hard about that. Just bear with me. To me, negatives and positives, it's an easy flip. Okay, and then let's do as of year to date. Or actually, let me do this. That's my bad. Remember, we always put year to date first. You always make year to date your first statement. These statements need to be in chronological order. So as of year to date, right? As of year to date, all profits have been retained on the balance sheet. Okay. So now we have a comment on the changes in retained earnings between year to date 2025, between fiscal year in 2024 and fiscal year in 2023, right? I want you to write a statement on what happened to retained earnings in fiscal year in 2023, fiscal year in 2024, and year to date 2025. Do all three, okay? And make sure that you have all these comments ready. And just a disclaimer, some of these conversations have outdated dates, and you have to basically move the date over 1 year. So it'll say like they're recovering from COVID-19 in 2022, but it actually applies to 2023's financial statements. That's a mistake that I made when I didn't update the conversations. But anyways, so that's how you do that. And I know this video is running long. We only have about 10 minutes left, and I promise it's gonna be pretty quick. Okay. So, risk number 4. I told you we were gonna have more risks. As we noted earlier, our company, the one that I'm analyzing right now, they do have excessive leverage. And you want to know how I know they have excessive leverage? Because on here, it says that their leverage is at 3.69x, and anything greater than 3 in the most recent period is excessive leverage. So excessive leverage refers to a borrower who reports debt to tangible net worth ratio greater than 3. Now, remember how we navigate this. You go to credit risks, and if they qualify for any of these things, then I want you to come up to the top of the project where it says analysis review, and then where it says risks, I want you to highlight and I want you to type out whatever risk it is. And this risk is excessive leverage. Leverage. The borrower's leverage as of year to date 2025 is 3.66x. Right? Okay. Okay. Cool. Quick little statement. Now let's keep going. Let's see if they violate anything else with this. Interest sensitivity, evergreen, revolving line of credit. Some of you guys have evergreen revolving line of credits. Make sure you look to see evergreen revolving line of credit. Check that one. Consecutive sales declines. Some of y'all might have this. Make sure you check it. Excessive distributions. Wow. So we'll get to this eventually. Loan policy. Okay, let's keep going. Capital policy, balance sheet, liquidity. Okay, and you see leverage. Leverage that deviates from the industry standard more than 0.5x must be mitigated. So remember, this company's leverage deviates way more than 0.25%. Not 0.25, way more than 0.5, way more. And as we can see, it's a pretty big difference. It's way more than 0.5%. It's actually like 2.29. So it's a pretty big difference. Okay. Right. Inadequate liquidity. The borrower's liquidity ratios fell below 25% deviation. Okay. All right, good. So that's how you're gonna do this homework. And if you have excessive leverage, make sure that you cite that as a policy. And good luck, guys. And again, if I'm speaking slowly, just watch these videos at 1.5 speed. All right, good luck.